Vasudevaya. Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Shaiva Narottamam Devim Sarasatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye. Welcome everybody to the Srimad Bhagavatam class. This program that we have here at ISKCON Silicon Valley on Saturday mornings is esoteric. If you come in from someplace like Home Depot, you might find it a little bit unusual. So the context is that these are the activities that go on in the spiritual world. Krishna is there because he's the original cause of all causes. As he says in the Bhagavad Gita, Ham Sarvasya Prabhavo. Everything else emanates from me. And as Brahma, the first created being, confirms Ishvara Parama Krishna. Krishna is the supreme controller. And the Vedas in general give the understanding of the Supreme as Janmadyasya Yataha, that from whom everything else emanates. There is an original cause of everything. And that cause is sentient, means he's a person. And he's a Purusha. He's the controller, a male person who is the master of all energies and all of the living beings. And he's also described as being the Suhrit, or the best friend of everyone, every living entity. So there's a science behind the practice of Krishna consciousness, which begins with Sambandha Gyan and an understanding of one's relationship with that supreme person. As described by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, Narupamasyeha tato palabhyate nantona charirna chasam pratishta ashvatamenam savurudhamulam asanga shastrena dritena chitva chatak padam tat parimargitavyam yasmin gata anhan nifartanti bhuya tameva chadyam purusham prapadye yatak pravriti prashita purani. When I'm in the material world, it's hard for me to have any context or see where I am, because it's so vast and overwhelming. Oftentimes, Prabhupada would compare the attempt to understand the material world to a frog in a 3-foot well. And the frog might speculate about the Pacific Ocean. Imagine a frog that doesn't have any transportation and hasn't seen the Pacific Ocean and sits in its well and then tries to think of a body of water that's vaster than his, and he may speculate maybe it's 10 times bigger. Okay, 100 times, but that's it. And in my attempts to understand the material nature, no matter how intelligent I may be, I can't, because it's coming from Krishna and it's a divine energy. Even Brahma, when he was first born, tried to understand the material nature by looking around. He was born atop a lotus flower on a very high stem in the Karna ocean, the causal ocean, or Garbhodak ocean rather, the ocean within this universe. And then from the stem of Garbhodakshayi Vishnu, he climbed down the lotus stem. There were high winds, he was holding on. He saw the ocean raging underneath. And he couldn't find any source to himself. But then he heard the words tapa, or as we hear in the Brahma Samhita, he heard divine Saraswati give him the instruction that he should meditate on the mantra, the Krishna mantra, Gopal mantra. So he began to do that. And after some time, he was able, by the mercy of Krishna, to understand something about the universe. Of course, he's the sub-creator or the engineer who puts everything together, but still, it's beyond his comprehension. What to speak of an ordinary living being who's entangled in the three modes of material nature to understand the universe. So Krishna says, we can't understand the form of the world, we don't know where we are, what's up and what's down. It's very hard to understand where we came from, where we're going. All these things are a symptom of being tiny and also being tiny and in ignorance. So he says that one must perform this operation of separating oneself from the material world. And one of the ways that we do that, Sangha Shastrena Dritena Chitva, he says, you should cut down this deeply rooted tree that you're entangled in. So there's Shastrena Dritena Chitva, use the sword. And where do you get that? Shastra, which is the same word only with a long A, which means take advantage of the knowledge that's coming down from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that knowledge actually cuts the tree of material existence, because if I find out that the goals of my life are unachievable, or even if I attain them, as Hiranyakashipu demonstrated, they're unsustainable. Don't ask for anything that you can't maintain, because it's difficult. And hint, we can't really maintain anything. Krishna's the maintainer. So there's also particular information about our relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is, sanitya nitya sambandha prakritischa paraivasa. We have an intimate relationship with our source. And in the Srimad Bhagavatam, there is very detailed information about the kinds of relationships that one can have with the Supreme, starting with Shantaras, an abiding appreciation for the beauty, grandeur of the Lord, and it's in a benign state. And then there's a feeling that maybe I should do something for the Supreme. Since he has senses, maybe I can do something for his pleasure. That's when one moves into that action stage. That's called Dasya Ras. And then there's very esoteric other understandings. Mostly people don't go beyond that, but Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught about the ways in which God, Krishna, is a personality. He has his own abode, which is very special. Goloka Namni Nijadamni. It's a Nijadam, his own personal abode where he's at home. And he's in a very loving, casual mood and relates to all his loving devotees. And there are other kinds of relationships like Sakya. Sakya means friendship. Can one be a friend to the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Yes. There are loving relationships and friendship, and there are varieties in those friendships. And then there's, believe it or not, Vatsalya, where one thinks of oneself as the Supreme's guardian, or like a parent figure. And then Madhurya, which is the kind of love relationship. Like there's husband and wife, and there's also boyfriend, girlfriend. In Dwarka, there's a relationship Krishna has with his many wives, 16,108. And in Vrindavan with his so-called girlfriends. all of this we see in this world, which is a reflection of the spiritual world. Urdhva mulamada shakam ashvatam avyayam chandamsi yasya parnani yasam veda saveda vid adashchordvam prashitastasya shaka guna pravida vishaya pravala adashchamamulan anusantatani karmani bandini manushaloke. Krishna describes how by 180 degrees the entire spiritual world is reflected in the pool of this material world made up of the three modes of material nature. So we see the kinds of relationships here in this world, only they don't work out for a couple of reasons. One is because they're based on a false premise that I have a relationship with my master or my dependents or my friends and so forth. And then that relationship gets interrupted either by a disagreement or by the force of time. It's severed. And we have to move on. These are all reflected relationships that are there in the spiritual world. Anything we see here is coming from the spiritual world because this is a reflected image. What's most important to the bhakti yogi is understanding the relationships, because as Prabhupada points out in the Nectar of Devotion, everyone's working for pleasure, and pleasure comes from relationships. For instance, a person who works very hard is seeking a relationship and the pleasure of family many times. That maintain a house, which takes a lot of work, even building a house takes a Herculean effort and resources from all over the planet. Why? So I can go in there, and do I want to just live alone? Like my friend Bopadev, he had a perfectly good apartment. I remember in Alachua I went and visited him, but he was single, and he had one spoon in the whole apartment. That's all you have for everything. But a person who wants to have enjoyment in the material world needs lots of spoons and then other kinds of paraphernalia. You can count it, endlessly count it at any kind of sale people have in the front of their house, getting rid of all their stuff. Everyone's got all kinds of stuff. And what's it for? Put it in a little house, and then you can't just do it alone. If you're alone, all you need is one spoon. But if you have other people, you got to get a few spoons and then other kinds of strainers and pots and so forth. And all that goes towards, I want to have a loving relationship with wife, husband, and kids, and then 52 cousins. And they'll all come over. So this is the way in which I try to enjoy in the material world, but as described by a Vaishnava poet, Vidyapati, this enjoyment looks like it should be enjoyment, and you could say theoretically that there is some enjoyment, but he compares it to a person who's in the desert and is dying of thirst, and then asks for water, and someone says, certainly I can give you some water. And then, please, one drop. That's it. I mean, practically in the desert sun, the drop evaporates before it reaches his lips. So it's water in theory, but it actually doesn't quench our thirst. So Krishna says that when you understand the temporary nature of the relationships in this world that we have, and he says you should be intelligent. Yehi samsparshaja bhoga dukha yonaya evate adyantavanta konte anate shuramate Buddha. Buddha means an intelligent person, is someone who figures out that, okay, I have all these relationships, all these spoons, forks, knives, pots, pans, stove, flown in from Germany or wherever the best ones come from. But all these things have a beginning and an end. Even Shukadeva Goswami in the beginning of the Srimad Bhagavatam, who's extremely austere, he doesn't even wear clothes. He's saying, what's the use of all this stuff? You can lie on the ground. You don't need a posturepedic or a sleep number. You need a little ground you can lie on. And I've seen that before when I stayed at the Goshala. Prem Kishore's 2 kids, they're young at the time. They're so used to living in Vrindavan. They come home exhausted as young kids do. They were probably, 10 and 12 or something like that. They come in. The floor was very nice. It was soft. It was made out of cow dung, like hardened cow dung. It was a very nice kind of environment. And they just come in, and I'd watch them, and they just fall on the floor and go to sleep. That was it. So there's not advocating necessarily for that, but the point is, Shukadev Goswami says, don't get waylaid by all these things. They're not real. And Krishna says that they all have a beginning and an end. All my attachments here, my relationships, all the stuff I have, it's going to come and go. So don't be so attached to it. You can keep it, but use it for a higher purpose. Anasaktasya vishayan yatarham upayunjita nirbandha Krishna sambandhe yuktam vairagyam uchite. When you have things and you use them for a higher purpose, then they become spiritualized. And then Krishna says, tatakpadam parimargitavyam. Make the journey, parimargitavyam, towards reality. Once you've understood that there's a futility in working hard for the temporary things of this world, the reflected reality, the reflection of reality, then you can start making progress towards the real thing, and that's bhakti yoga. There's a process through which we can actually transfer our interests from the material world to the spiritual world. We have the same kinds of interests, because again, it's a reflection. But what are those interests? I want a relationship. So where do I get it? Find tatakparam parimargitavyam yasmin gatana nirvartanti bhuya tameva chadyam purusham pravadye yatak praviti prashita parani. Go there and find that person who's the origin of all rasas, raso vaisaha, the person who can reciprocate perfectly the loving relationships that I'm looking for. And there, give yourself, give your heart in that place. Don't be afraid. You can fully invest all your energy there and you'll never be disappointed. In fact, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Neha bhikramanashosti pratyavayo navidyate swalpamapyasya dharmasya trayate mahto bhahyat. That if you give a tiny little investment to Krishna, you'll never be the loser. Whereas with all the maneuvering one can make in this material world to invest, it'll all be lost eventually. Or sooner or later, it'll be lost. But not the investment you make in Krishna, in our relationship with Krishna, and everything it takes in order to develop that relationship. It doesn't mean that we don't already have a relationship with Krishna. We do, but I've pointed my attention elsewhere to illusory relationships with the world, which really means with people, with other living beings, and my relationships, because that's the essence of our search in life, is to find loving relationships. So, what if we get on the path of bhakti and then we find it hard to do? Is that possible? Yes. So it's a simple process, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's easy, because there may be obstacles. So, how does one overcome those obstacles? We have to have yoga balena, spiritual strength. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna talks about yoga. And he says, Prayanakali manasachalena bhaktya yukto yoga balena chaiva bruvor madhye pranamavesha samyak satam param purusham upaiti divyam. Prayanakale means at the end of this body. This is very heavy language, actually, for most people, because everyone's moving around in life, la-di-da-di-da, everything's fine. And then you go like, hey, you're going to leave your body, and they say, what? How do you talk things? Why do you say things like that? Can't we talk about something nice? And Krishna comes out in the Bhagavad Gita. This is yoga talk. Prayana kale manasa chalena. When you leave this body, at the end of the body, and we say, Vayora nilam amritam atedam bashmantam shariram. A little more verve. Vayora nilam amritam atedam bashmantam shariram. Yeah, this heavy verses about how let this temporary body be burnt to ashes and let the air of life be merged with the totality of air. That's something you can bring up at a PTA meeting. What about my child when his body is burned to ashes, or mine? And so there's this stark reality that Krishna and the Upanishads and throughout the Srimad Bhagavatam were presented with, that there's an end to all this, to this body and so forth. And so Krishna says, Prayana kali manasachalena bhaktya yukto ye yoga balena chaiva. He said, work in this lifetime to develop bala, spiritual strength. Yoga balena. Yoga means there's a systematic practice that one should engage in to become very strong, so that at the time of death, bruvor madhye pranam avesha samyak, you can place your focus between the two eyebrows. This is for yogis. They're placing their life airs, everything near the top of the head, be fully focused, get ready to burst out of the top of the head and head off for the planet that they're looking for. So Prabhupada says in his purport that you can't do that suddenly. You have to develop strength over a lifetime. And it takes investment in some practice. He says Satkriya Yoga, Satchakra Yoga, or Bhakti, or especially Bhakti Yoga, he says, to become strong. So there's strength and then there's weakness. But what is the weakness? That's described by our various acharyas. What keeps us from developing this, what's called steadiness. This is the first platform where we can feel some actual happiness, where we're not harassed by the obstacles that are inherent when we start off the process of devotional service. Inherent means because I've been dabbling in matter for so long, to say the least. There's a way in which I have lingering effects. And when I take to bhakti, then there are various obstacles that have to be removed in order to come to the platform of nishta. And this is something that Arjuna asks about. He wants to know, what is the symptom of a steady person? What does it look like when someone comes to steadiness? And then also we ask, how does one get to that position? What are the specific obstacles that one has to overcome to legitimately be fixed in consciousness? Otherwise, how will I be enthusiastic for devotional service if I'm constantly harassed by obstacles like sleep and like indifference and distraction? Distraction is torture, focus is nectar. I can only focus my mind when I come to this point of steadiness. So before I go into more of the details, we'll just take a few reflections to try to illuminate the parts that we've talked about already. Is everyone okay? Okay. So reflect back anything that you heard so far so we can go fully into the subject matter.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. The point that you said about, Krishna can reciprocate in all ways. So if we invest our energy in the relationship with Krishna, then we'll never be disappointed. I felt that was very striking, because all the relationships in the material world some are pure, but ultimately everything comes with, people have their own agendas and things like that. So we do, get disappointed many times. Whereas, if we put our time and energy in Krishna, then he can satisfy us to the best.
Yeah, have you ever noticed that any project, relationship, investment that you have in this world, sooner or later goes sideways? And the older I get, the more I'm convinced through the theory, mathematical theory of the theory of large numbers, of how true this is. Theory of large numbers says the more times you perform an experiment, the closer it comes to the average mean, which will show the consistent result that you're going to get from a particular experiment. That was a very wordy way of saying it, but the fact is, if you flip a coin twice and it lands on heads both times, you might conclude erroneously that it's not 50-50. But if you do it 10,000 times, the law of large numbers says it'll come closer to that. And so the older I get, the more I notice that it's not me, it's the way the material world is, that everything eventually goes sideways. And you'd never know where it's going to come from or which way it's going to come from, but it will. So there's an old saying about how spiritual life is all gain and no risk. And material life is all risk and no gain. If one can appreciate that, this is called Shraddha, or faith in the process of Krishna's protection and devotional service, that if I give myself to Krishna, he'll protect me. This is what the pure devotees have in Vrindavan. They're always just depending on Krishna. Whereas when I try to arrange everything for myself and make sure everything's planned out in this world and I have enough resources to protect me, Shukadeva Goswami says, forget it. Deha patra kalatraveshu atmasaini sasatsapi. He said, these are fallible soldiers. I'm not advocating, again, giving disclaimers as I go, that one be irresponsible. One has to manage the resources. Tina tyaktena punjita. You have to manage the resources that are given as your quota properly in Krishna's service. But there should be an ever-increasing and abiding sense that these are not my resources and they can be recalled at any time. And therefore, I should use them for a higher purpose. Thank you. Okay, who's next? Yes.
You said Krishna is our best friend. That was very encouraging.
It is very encouraging, especially since what he also says in the verse, Bhuktaran Yagyatapasam, he's the enjoyer of all sacrifices. Sarvaloka Maheshwara, he owns everything. Who wouldn't want a friend like that? And which is better, to be the king or to be the intimate servant of the king? It's better to be the servant, because the king is always under attack. Of course, Krishna can handle it. Ordinary kings eventually succumb. Look at Ozymandias. And there's a way in which we're in a good position, actually. We just have to assume that position rather than an artificial position that, no, I'm the enjoyer and I'm the owner and controller. And if I let Krishna be the owner and controller and put him in the center, then Krishna says, Gyatva mam shantim richati, then you'll have peace, because it's we got a really good slot for you, little jiva. Just be who you are. You're really in an advantageous position. In fact, so advantageous that one could argue at some point that it's actually even a better position than being Krishna. That's why Krishna comes as a devotee, sometimes to appreciate the appreciators, or to be one of the appreciators, because it's really good. And the more you can appreciate Krishna, the better off you are. Yes.
Prabhu, would you be talking a little bit more about how actually to increase the yoga balam?
How to increase the yoga balena? Yes, I will talk about it.
And Madhava also, Prabhu, is actually raised.
Oh, good. We have we can't forget our Zoom past. We have a history with Zoom. We used to be there. Okay, Prabhu, Sri Madhava Mahotsava. Please go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj, please
Hare
accept my
Krishna.
humble obeisances. I like the point you were raising about how in the Shastras they talk about these stark realities, like the temporary body being burnt into ashes and Vayu Anilam Amritam. So I just really appreciate that, how the Shastras, hit you with the facts or keep it real. Because alternatively, there's just so much illusion and so much misdirection. And also, even that verse, it kind of puts you next to like a sage who's fully processed the material world and concludes that, yeah, let go of everything. I'm detached and let this body's temporary. So let it be burnt into ashes. And then it mentions now, oh my Lord, please remember all the sacrifices I've done for you. And so that it also reveals that intimate relationship that we have, like the most important relationship is between the spirit soul and the Supreme Lord. So even though it may seem as like heavy information, it's like it touches the heart, because it's so like it makes us aware of how vulnerable we are, and also that our most important relationship is with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So I just appreciate you for talking about that during class, keeping it real. Thank you.
Yeah, where else are you going to hear it? Sadhu Vrindavan.
Hare Krishna
where else are you going to hear except for the Shastra, and those are representing the Shastra? Otherwise, it's a taboo subject to talk about. In fact, once, probably foolishly, definitely foolishly, when I was a brahmachari, and I was at the Swargadwar in Puri, where they burn all the bodies in public. I took photos, and then I showed one to my mom once when I came home to visit once, and it totally freaked her out. And I thought, that's probably not a good vacation photo to show to people. She said, never show me that again. And I just realized how horrific it is to be suddenly informed that in a very kind of unceremonious way that, hey, by the way, you got to give everything back. And nobody ever told me. I wasn't informed. Everyone's going on la-di-da, as if it's going to be okay. And, little Jimmy's got a bike, and, I have money in the bank, I just got a raise, and blah, blah, blah. And the whole material world is going on as some kind of phantasmagoria, say the sages. And it's like, this is a total fake out. Total fake out, colossal hoax. I mean, talk about conspiracy theory. The whole thing is like from the ground up. And so what Sri Madhava Mahotsava Prabhu is pointing out is like, yeah, that Shukadeva Goswami tells you, and then you feel good about it because, at least you heard the truth, and then you can start making other plans. I think I have alternative plans now because this doesn't sound so great. Sadhu.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. You're talking about how a pure devotee is always dependent on Krishna. It doesn't matter whatever happens. He's always surrendered unto Krishna. So I was just thinking of the verse Ananyas Chintayanto Mam Yejana Paripastate Tesham Nityabhiyuktanam.
Can you say that slow and sweet, please?
Ananyas Chintayanto Mam Yejana Paripastate Tesham Nityabhiyuktanam Yogakshemam Vahamyaham. And it means that when a devotee surrenders unto Krishna, he carries what the devotee lacks and preserves what he has. And or more specifically, ye yatamam pradyante tam sataiva bhajamiham mama vartmanu vartante Manushya
Manusha Partha Sarvasha, good.
Manushya Partha Sarsha, which basically means that as all surrender unto me, I reward him accordingly. So yeah, I was just thinking about these two verses when you made that point.
Thank you very much. Well done, sir.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, please accept my humble obeisances to you all. Glories to Srila Prabhupada. I like so many points, but I'm going to talk about a couple points that I really like. When you say that when we get older, we experience that this is so true. It double, triple, 100-time confirmation that when we live in family life or whatever we are doing, and then no matter how much we try to please somebody or we do so much and we get comfortable, and then suddenly we get even small like slap, and then we realize that this is Krishna's mercy, that I cannot be comfortable in this world and I have to do my sadhana or chanting and reading and not to get too attached with this. So that's also Krishna's mercy. And so I experienced it. And then one time I went to, last week I went to Kaiser, and the person who was registering at front, all the patients, and he said, he just made one point that really struck me. He said, when I see everybody's pain in the hospital, it makes me humble. And he said I feel that how fortunate I am when I'm working here, and it makes me humble. And I said, oh, that means you like spirituality and you will like this book. So I gave him a couple of books and he really liked it. And so that made me think when I came home that all these material things that we get, beat by whatever, and it makes us humble and we want to surrender more and do our sadhana according to our best capacity. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Thanks for the real life anecdote. There's a verse in the 11th canto in which Krishna mentions that one should use 4 kinds of evidence to notice that the material world is a temporary place. Pratyaksha, Anuman, Aitya, and Shabda. So Shabda means hear about it from the Shastra. And Aitya means wisdom that's passed down, word of mouth. And like nobody gets out of here alive. Then there's direct perception. You can walk around and see, oh yeah, this is actually happening in real time. And logic also, because the death rate is still 100% after thousands of years. Even with the best laid plans and so-called remedies, it's still the same when you go to any doctor now as when you went before and said, can you cure me? And they'll say, we'll give it a try. And then there'll be a lot of debate about whether it worked or not, and maybe there's side effects and so forth. So that's the nature of the material world. Krishna says so, vikalpat sa virajite. You get that shloka book. Oh, there it is. It's right next to you. 11th canto, you can look it up. Yes, one more reflection. Yes, Prabhu.
I was reminded of the bhajan.
Go Shruti Pratyaksham Aitiyam. Go ahead.
Maharaj, I was reminded of the bhajan Bhajure Mana, and especially that paragraph.
Which bhajan? We can barely hear you. You got to hold that close to your.
Bhajure Mana by Govinda Das.
Bhajure Mana.
Especially, Edhana Yavana, Putra Parijana, Ite ki Achi Parititire, Kamala Dala Jala, Jivana Talamala, Bhajo Haripad Nitire. So I was thinking how eloquently the entire thing that you are speaking is captured by Govinda Das in that bhajan. And he's
Yeah,
always...
almost a kind of remorseful or melancholy song in a raga that indicates that kind of mood. Kamala jala jala jivana talamala bahuhar hari para nichire. The Kamala dala jala jivana talamala, poetic, beautiful alliteration, and there's description of how the drop of water is on a lotus and it can slip off at any time. My life's like that. And all of this investment I've given in the relationships in this world, they can be lost at any time as well. Thank you very much. Shruti pratyakshamaytiyam anumanam chatushtayam pramaneshvanavasthanad vikalpat savirajite. Can you read this? Translation open now.
From the four types of evidence, Vedic knowledge, direct experience, traditional wisdom, and logical induction, one can understand the temporary, insubstantial situation of the material world, by which one becomes detached from the duality of this world.
Thank you very much. Directly from Krishna to Uddhava. So he said, look around and check it out for yourself. And then, vikalpa savirajite, have a sense that the material world's not stable, and therefore take a chill pill. Don't get too invested here. Yes.
Oh, just on the topic of the material world being very temporary, we were doing something with vocabulary in my literature class, and one of the words I got was illusion, and the exact definition for it was something that you think is there, but it's not there. And I just sat in my literature class looking around at everybody, and I was like, wow, they're all gonna go. I'm gonna go too. So it was just really like, it was weird to just sit there and realize that everything here is temporary, even like my teacher, all my friends, and just, yeah.
Yeah, and as you go into literature or any other, I mean, especially literature, if you're in humanities, you'll go into all kinds of poetry, gather ye rosebuds while ye may, because, everything's going to fall apart. Only problem is, although the observation's there, the second part of the verse that we chanted today from Bhagavad Gita, tatakparam tat, tut, what is the tut? Tut means there's thatness somewhere. There's no thatness in the material world. It doesn't actually, there's no there. You try for it and it's like, what happened to it? It just evaporated. We want tut, tattva. What's the thing that actually exists, that's really there, that's always there? Nasato vitite bhavo, na bhavo vitite sata. That thing that really exists. And so that's the important information, because a lot of people have information. Like Buddha, the story goes that he was a prince and he was protected in the palace. His family didn't let him see anything of the world, but then he came out, he went to Loy Bazaar, and he saw people that were sick, and he saw people that were, a funeral going by, Ram Nam Satyahe, and all the things of the world, birth, death, old age, and disease, and he said, this is horrible. And I never knew this, so I got to get out of here. But the part that's always missing until one comes to the Srimad Bhagavatam is tat. What is that person? Where is the real standing? I can't stand on nothing. I can't become nothing. I can't just give everything up. I have to have a place to go where there's a relationship. And that's the main point. So that's the beauty of the Bhagavatam, because the same things you'll read in literature class about relationships and of this world, then you hear the same thing, only it's with reality. Reality is beautiful and eternal, and as a person, and it's completely fulfilling, so we have to have that. Thank you, that was good. So, what is Yoga Balena? One of the ways it's described, Yoga Balena, is one of the names of Krishna. Krishna's first expansion, his Vaibhava Prakash, is Balaram. Now, Balaram is the same in every way as Krishna. He's like a facsimile of Krishna. There he is, Krishna, only different color. And a different abhiman, or a different mood. Krishna's abhiman is the controller of everyone, because that's his rightful position, and only he has that right. Ekale Ishvara Krishna Arsa Britya, Chaitanya Charitamrita. There's only one supreme controller, it's Krishna. Everyone else is Britya, is a servant. And that includes Balaram, his first expansion. Although it's Krishna himself, he comes out with the mood of, I'm the servant of Krishna. And Balaram is like Krishna is the proprietor, and Balaram's like the manager of the whole thing. He manages all the energies. He is the source of and manifests the Sandhini potency, which means the stabilizing force or the facilitating force behind everything in the spiritual world and in the material world as well. And also, that includes facilitating those who want to go to Tat, to Krishna. Means the material world's unstable. We already heard that from the verse that you gave us, read for us. And then, how do we get from instability to stability? We have to have spiritual strength. Tadakpanam tat parimargitavyam. How are we going to know? How are we going to tread that path? Parimargitavyam, walk that direction in a way that will get us there. So one of the ways is to remove the obstacles. So first of all, we have to know what the obstacles are. So they're listed in various ways. One of them is called asat trishna. Trishna, with a T, sounds like Krishna, but it's trishna. Trishna means a thirst. And asat means something that is not permanent, doesn't really exist because it's here today, gone tomorrow. But I have a thirst for it. I want it. I don't care. I'll take it anyway. And a lot of the themes of various stories are, forbidden love. It's like, I want it, but it's going to kill you. It's like, I still have to have it. It's like, you idiot. It's pointed out as being romantic, but that can go on in the spiritual world and you can relish it. But in the material world, it's disaster. And so this asat trishna is one of the first obstacles of being attracted to the non-permanent. And then comes Hridaya Darbalyam, which means a weakness of heart, otherwise known as woe, W-O-H, woe. I have an understanding that the material world is a temporary place. I know which way I want to go, but I don't have the strength to do it. I still can't lift my arms and pick up my japa bag. And Krishna mentions this, and so does Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. He quotes from the Bhagavatam and says, there is a position in which you know what to do, but you just can't do it. So you've heard this verse many times, but this is quoted by the Acharyas, Jata Shraddha Matkatasu, Nirvina Sarvakarmasu, Veda Dukkha Makankamam Parityage Pyanishvara, Tato Bhajetamam Prita Shradalur Jurdanishchaya, Jushamanams Tatankamams, Duko Darkams Tagarayan. And this indicates this position. I know what to do, I can't do it. So my faith is awakened in the process. Jata Shraddha means faith is born. Matkatasu, I have a faith also that if I hear Krishna Katha, that I will advance in devotional service. Nirvina Sarvakarmasu, and I'm also disgusted with the material world. I know that it's it's futile, the sense gratification, and it leads to misery. But parithyage pyanishvara, parityage means to give something up. Pyanishvara, I don't have the strength to give up these bad habits. Just can't do it. Tato bhajetamam prita shradhalur jnanishchaya, Krishna says, but understand that, or he's saying, I understand your position. You're very dear to me because you're trying. And he said, so don't give up the process. Continue, because gradually you'll come to a success and you'll be able to do it with full taste. And so he says you could be a little remorseful, but don't become pathologically remorseful so that you give up the process. Say, I can't do it, and also nobody can do it, because if I can't do it, nobody else can either. They're just faking it anyway. So don't be like that, he says. Just understand that the process is extremely powerful. Similar thing that he says in Apichat Sutaracharo, that no matter how low a devotee seems to have fallen, don't worry, because the process of devotional service is so powerful that very soon, Sri Prambhavati Dharmatma, he'll become to the perfectional stage. So, Hridaya Durbhalyam means I have this weakness of heart to want to enjoy the temporary, and that's a difficult position to be in. And then there's Operadha, the tendency to commit Operadha. So we know Radharani is the emblem of all pure devotional service, and so her name is Radha. If you say Aparadha, means that you're doing activities, you're acting in such a way that you're going against the process of devotional service, like Atyahara Prayashascha, Janashangascha Loliam Cha. There are various ways in which I act against the flow of devotional service, and I won't make advancement. And then there are three kinds of aparadhas that one can make, which waylay one on the path of devotional service and keep one in a weak state. So one of them is called namaparadha, is offending the holy name. And there's 10 offenses against the chanting of the holy name. And then there's Vaishnava aparadha, offending devotees who are performing devotional service. And then there's Seva aparadha, the aparadhas or the mistakes I make in serving Krishna, like in deity worship. And so these are the three categories of that stand between a devotee and nishta. And also there's 5 characteristics that emerge from these mistakes, which are listed as, first of all, being sleepy when it's time to perform devotional service. Of course, there's a time to sleep, but then there's a time not to sleep, which is like in Bhagavatam class, or when one's chanting the holy name. But there's a way in which I'm so uninterested that, or at least my brain is, part of me wants to do it, but the other part, as soon as I start chanting, because, like, can't we play a video game instead? And so this sleep, or laya, is one of the obstacles that is apparent when these various aspects of blockage are there in our devotional practice. From asat trishna, I'm still attracted to the material world, it looks better to me than devotional service. Hridaya Dorbalyam, a weakness of heart, is like, I'm flabby, I just can't get up. And then the aparads, I haven't taken the trouble to clean that up, to not commit the aparadhas, and it's affecting me. So then part of that, the symptom of that is that I become sleepy when I want to do devotional service. And then there's a distraction, being prone to distraction. And this is something that, of course, all of it takes practice, but devotees who want to overcome these anomalies and get spiritual strength have to scratch, crawl, bite, whatever you have to do to get past them. And one of them is distraction. And if I practice being distracted, then I'll be distracted a lot, because there's plenty of distractions that call to me. One of my suggestions for overcoming distractions is deciding what the core practices are every day that I will do as a bare minimum, and the standard that I'll keep every single day, no matter where I am or what the circumstances, and then work towards doing those as well as possible as a starting point, because once I have that down, there's a kind of taste that comes from it, and there's a way in which it becomes ingrained in my daily schedule, that this is what I do first, before I talk to people, before I do anything else, before I get sucked into the world. And that starts to give an oasis away from distraction. And other people around us may be distracting forces because we've empowered them to distract us as well. Like, yeah, I know he doesn't really pay attention when he chants his rounds, so therefore, I'll just introduce a video game while he's chanting, and he won't mind, because I know that's, but you have to make the determination yourself, and then the environment adjusts accordingly. So distraction is the second, and the third is indifference, which is a very strange kind of feeling, but it comes from tamogun. Tamogun means that I'm zoned out completely from what's important in life. In fact, it's a negative space. It's very dark. And that tamogun just comes up. If I've practiced touching the tamogun in the past, then it may be in there. And it has to come out. So the Kaliya serpent, one of the demons that Krishna killed, Krishna danced on his hoods. And every time he hopped up on the other hood, he smashed it down, and poison was coming out. And he had to dance for a long time until Kaliya became not only exhausted, but also free from poison. He had expelled it all in getting hit over and over again by Krishna's lotus feet on his head. And then this feeling came into his mental system that, maybe I really should surrender. Because my wives have been telling me this. His wives, the Nagapatnis, were really good devotees. And they, don't be such a jerk. Of course, they were more polite about it perhaps, but they were pretty disgusted with him. And when they saw him getting beat up by Krishna, they were thinking, hey, if Krishna kills him, they weren't totally against him, but we understand, But when they saw that, and they could see it in his countenance, that he suddenly was different, and he was exhibiting this kind of radiance that, I think, which comes out from somebody who has this feeling that I really do want to surrender. And I think that I'll give up my attachment to the material world. And when he did that, then the Nagapatnis started rooting for him and praying to Krishna, please don't kill him. You can see now he's a devotee, he's surrendering to you, and things like that. So point is that the mode of ignorance is poison. I've been drinking it wholesale for many lifetimes, just thinking this is really good. And it's in there. So I have to allow Krishna to smash my head and voluntarily hear the holy name as if Krishna is dancing, and the impulses I have for the material world, let Krishna smash those out of me, and the devotees, the association of devotees, to take it out. And then I can come to a point where there's no more of that ignorance inside. And I feel I think I'm free from that tendency to just zone out and be indifferent to devotional service. I'm going to be fully attentive. This is one of the symptoms of coming to Nishta, that this is the most important thing to me now in my life. And then he mentions that there is innate tendencies in me, like anger or lust that become obstacles to nishta. And those, after some time of hearing and chanting and practicing devotional service, naturally become evaporated by the power of Krishna. Virkriditam vrajabadur birahamcha Vishnu shadhanvitona shrinu yadatavarna yedya. Bhaktim param bhagavati pratilabhya kamam hridrogam ashvapahinot yacharina dhira. Shukadeva Goswami says it's remarkable how the hearing Krishna Katha, it actually will cleanse the heart of lust, the dreaded enemy of the conditioned soul, lust for enjoying the material senses in this world. Will be evaporated. And then also, each one of the senses, this is the fifth obstacle, has some kind of attraction, sense attraction. But by the process of devotional service, gradually, those senses feel more comfortable engaging in Krishna's service. For instance, the senses want some activity, but I only feel satisfied when I'm engaging them in some process of devotional service, and they can become purified. So these are the obstacles, and the absence of these obstacles means that one has come to the position of nishta. So nishta means steadiness in devotional service. And Baladev is the one who helps us come to that point, and therefore one of his names is Balabhadra. He's the strongest of the strong. He's the source of all strength. And so, as we were talking about this morning in the japa circle, one gets strength from repeating Krishna's name, Rama. Rama, Rama, Rama. We're saying Hare Krishna, Hare Rama. Or Hare Rama, Hare Krishna. As people in India say, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna. But just by saying Krishna's name, by saying the name of Rama, Balabhadra, then we actually are associating with him. And we begin to develop this strength that comes from Krishna's association, from Balaram's association. The next is a connection to Guru. Because in this world, I'm a hapless soul. Hapless? Can somebody look it up, please? Hapless. Hap, I think, has something to do with luck. I'm an unlucky soul. It says, yes?
Hapless is, it means, especially if a person unfortunate.
Yeah, I'm an unfortunate soul in this material world. So I'm hapless. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Brahmanda Brahmate Kon Bhagyavan Jeev. You've become unhapless or happy. You've become unhapped by meeting a representative of Balaram. What does that mean? Brahmanda Brahmate. I'm just wandering around. I remember that as being a kid. He's like, what do you want to do today? I don't know. What do you want to do today? Let's go downtown. What do you want to do downtown? We'll buy some candy. Ride our bikes. And it's like, what? You don't have anything to do? Of course, nowadays kids build robots. What can I say? But, there's a way that the soul's just wandering in this world. What do you want to do next? Let's build us a rocket and see if we can go through the atmosphere. How much does that cost? I don't know, $50 million. Do you have anything better to do? No. Brahmanda, no offense, Mr. Whoever did it. There's a sense of wandering haplessly in this world. But Balaram comes to us as a representative, as the guru in Parampara. And so Balaram is the point of steadiness. He creates steadiness in our life, and this is one of the ways. Through his holy name, when we say his holy name, when we chant his holy name, there's a way of, we're associating with him, and there's a natural potency from that gives us strength from chanting. Because Nama Chintamani Krishna's Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha. we're actually associating with reality, the real person, the real thing. And then there's a way in which he sends a representative to us, Brahmanda Brahmate Kon Bhagyavan Jeev. Bhagyavan means somebody becomes fortunate. And how fortunate? By meeting Balaram through a representative. So there's this mention in the Shastras, the Balaram is the Akhanda Guru. He's the undivided principle of Guru. And he's the Samasti Guru. He's the source of all other gurus. So if there's any guru that one meets, whether Vartamana Pradakshaka Guru, the one who first introduces one to the process of Krishna consciousness, it could be anybody. My Vartamana Pradakshaka Guru was Richie Corsa. If you're listening, Richie, he brought me a Back to Godhead magazine and said, here, you should read this. And he said, I don't want it. I'm not interested. But he became my Vartamana, the instrument of me coming to Krishna consciousness. And Prabodhananda Saraswati's Vartamana Pradakshaka Guru was, did I say the right person? Prabodhananda? Huh? Bilvamangal Thakur's Vartamana Pradakshaka Guru was his girlfriend. They were just hanging out. And, one day she said, if you put so much energy, if you put the kind of energy you put into me, and, hey, this is a material body, why don't you'd be a great devotee. And he thought, yeah, maybe I should do that. So she became his first guru. It told him, why don't you do something with your life rather than coming to see me, which is a pretty nice thing to say. And so there's Vartamana Pradakshaka Guru, it's a representative of Baladev. And then there's the Shiksha Guru. Shiksha Guru is the person who gives instruction about one's relationship with Krishna. And you hear Krishna Katha, and then all of a sudden you go wow, I have some spiritual strength from listening to this person. I'm listening. I'm like, meh, all these, and then all of a sudden I feel like I'm not sleepy anymore, and I also actually care about this. And I feel like I want to do this. It's because you heard from Balaram through the Vyasti Guru. Vyasti Guru means the individual guru that's representing the Samasti Guru, or the guru that Balaram is. And he's shining his potency through a person. It could be any person who's actually following the parampara, strictly following the parampara, and has a standing in devotional service because that person heard. Shabde Parishanishnatam Brahman Upashramashrayam. They're absorbed because they got the same benefit from Balaram. They heard from a guru, and that enlivened them. They felt the strength that came in, and all of a sudden they said, hey, I'm different than I was before. So you get this shiksha. And then there's an old saying that a disciple catches, the guru catches a disciple by shiksha, and then the disciple catches the guru by diksha. Because then a disciple who's heard and feels strength from a samasti guru or a vyasti guru, someone who's representing Balaram, thinks, this is the only person for me. I got something from this person, and they come like, you got to give me initiation. And that means you're stuck with them for the rest of your life. It's like, gotcha, okay, you're getting initiated. And then you're responsible for me. So the Diksha Guru gives the mantra that's been passed down. And it's not just, here's a mantra, take it. But it's imbued with the mood of the mantra. This is important. It comes from somebody who's chanting the mantra, who's understood it, who's surrendered his or her life to Krishna, and then gives the mantra. And then, of course, the shiksha is like watering, and the diksha is like giving the seed. Which is more important? The seed or the water? Both. They're both equally important. You have to have both. You have to have the seed giver, and sometimes it's one person. It gives the seed and the information how to water it and how to, do the process. So these are all, according to the Shastra, manifestations of Baladev, because he is serving Krishna, and his main service to Krishna is to pave the way for more living entities. And there are how many living entities? Approximately? Asankhya. They're uncountable. They're unlimited because Krishna is unlimited, his desire to enjoy is unlimited, and to his desire to be appreciated by unlimited appreciators is unlimited. Therefore, there are unlimited living entities. But some of them are wayward. And therefore, the process of Krishna consciousness means that they come into the process of worshiping Krishna, and it fulfills Krishna's desires to have them come closer in their relationship. So that's what Balaram does. It's one of his services, and he makes that pathway available through the guru. He is the main guru, as you'll see in Lord Chaitanya's pastimes. When Lord Nityananda comes, the older brother of Lord Chaitanya, then Mahaprabhu performs the Vyasa Puja for Lord Nityananda. He's the guru there. So Balaram plays that part. So if one is fortunate, Bhagyavan, and because of sincerity, desire to know Krishna, meets a guru, Vartmana Pradaksha Guru, and then a Shiksha Guru, and then takes the mantra as one's life and soul. Evam vrata swa priyanama kirtya. I'm going to take this with a vow from the Guru. One is then connecting to Balaram. So one then need only take that very seriously. If one takes seriously the instructions of the spiritual master, for instance, the Guru will give some guidelines. Here's how to practice. Don't do these things. Do these things. Practice this every day without fail. And I say, I promise, I'm going to do that. So when we do that, we keep the promise. Then we get the spiritual strength. Because the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is a manifestation of his internal potency. And it is by that potency that one comes to see the Lord face to face. So if one honors the Guru, Yasya Devi Parabhaktir Yata Devi Tataguru, Tasyaite Katita Hyarta Prakashanti Mahatmanaha, one comes to have real knowledge. And it's realized knowledge. It's vijnana, through which one can overcome the obstacles. One actually becomes spiritually strong by following the simple instructions given by the Guru. If I don't take shelter of Guru, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, well, maybe next life. Because there's like Guru's available, but I just don't do it. That's like put it off. Then he says, you're committing the third offense to the holy name by not following the instructions of Guru. Because Guru is Balaram, and he's giving us a way to step forward and become steady. So if we take shelter of Balaram's names, Hari Rama, if we also take shelter of the instruction of Guru through Parampara, the Guru principle is Balaram, and we honor that as our life and soul, then we gradually are able to, by Lord Balaram's potency, overcome the insurmountable obstacles in this material world. Daiva hieshu gunamayi mama maya duratyaya mameva ye prapadyante mayam etam tarantite. It's impossible to overcome these anomalies we're faced with. The asat trishna. I just can't break it. I can't get the hridaya durba. How can I stop being such a wimp? And then the offenses. I'm just naturally offensive. I just watch TV, and now I interact with Vaishnavas. I say something stupid, or I become indifferent, or it's natural when I'm not actually following the process in such a way that I'm aligned. So Balaram will help us to overcome that. Daivihi eshu gunamayi. It's divine energy that's holding us back, and it's the divine intervention that can allow us to overcome the obstacles. And that's why we have to take shelter of Balaram. He comes with the plow and the grinding mortar, so he clears the the field so that we can actually invite Krishna to come in. He makes the field available or fertile and free from any obstacles. Okay, now we'll just take a couple reflections and we'll have a break, some kirtan.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu, for the nice class. 2 points I wanted to talk about, Prabhu. First is about the Maya aspect, how the Maya is strong. You were saying, the Visha Guna Maya Mama Maya Duratva. So, I was just remembering that when Prabhupada was discussing with his disciples, one of his disciples left the movement and he was saying it's not very kind of, wonderful that that people are leaving Krishna consciousness. Yeah, what is more wonderful is that people are sticking to it because my devotees are, because Maya is very strong and it's not kind of easy to remain in Krishna consciousness. So we'll have to pray every day to Lord Krishna for giving us strength. So that's one aspect. Another aspect, Prabhu, actually, I was thinking about my Bhartana Pradeshna Guru, who kind of was our tenant, and he actually kind of brought me to Krishna consciousness, but then later what happened, he got into some accident and left his life, which was kind of very tragic. So I was thinking about that part also and wanted to share that. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Yes, Prabhu. 1, 2.
Krishna Maharaj, thank you for such a beautiful presentation. I have an observation. I think it's very loud. I have an observation and I want your comment about that observation. Usually when we take shelter of Guru, we want instruction from them. We want to serve based on those instructions and want to connect or understand the sambandha with the relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead and serve based on that sambandha. But if we observe the pastimes of Lord Balaram and Lord Nityananda also in Chaitanya Leela, we don't see any instruction given by Lord Nityananda as such. Means like there is no conversation in the Shastra which says there is a question answer where somebody is asking question and Lord Nityananda is answering about devotional topics. Rather we say that Lord Krishna is actually doing it with Arjuna and later on with Uddhava. Lord Chaitanya is doing it with Ramananda Rai, Sanatan Goswami, Rupa Goswami and other associates. But we know that the Guru Tattva is embodied by Lord Nityananda himself. But we don't see any direct instruction. Rather we see the process of serving the Supreme Lord. What is the best way to serve? Which is actually in the Avidya level. So if you can actually give some insight about this observation, it will be helpful.
Yeah, Lord Nityananda is the Guru in the Leela of Nitai and Gauranga. And how is it that he instructs? He's the one who actually reveals Lord Chaitanya. Because many people don't know that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Krishna Chaitanya Radha Krishna Nahiyanya, they don't know that he's Krishna as coming as a devotee. And so when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu tells his associates, you go out and you teach people this process, teach what Krishna said in Bhagavad Gita, and worship Krishna. Manmana bhava mad bhakto. What does Lord Nityananda do? He goes door to door and says, worship Gauranga, chant Gauranga, surrender to Gauranga. Everything Gauranga, Gauranga, Gauranga. And everyone's like, wow, that's different from what Mahaprabhu told us. It's what Mahaprabhu wanted. But he wasn't going to say it himself. And Lord Nityananda was the guru because he opened the door to reveal who Lord Gauranga is. So that's his position, and that's why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu worshipped him as the guru. He's the Akhanda Guru Tattva. And he welcomed them in, and then Lord Nityananda did his job. And also, because Mahaprabhu may have given more extensive instructions, and Nityananda Prabhu was carrying them out. He told Nityananda when he went into his later years in Samadhi, did Lord Chaitanya, he told Lord Nityananda, you go to Bengal, especially West Bengal and you, East Bengal, and you, West Bengal, East Bengal, and you teach what is today East Bengal. And you spread Krishna consciousness. Then he set the example, the best way to teach. It's the only way to teach, ultimately by example. So the Guru teaches not just by giving instruction, but by also setting an example. So Nityananda Prabhu did that. Hare Krishna. Yes.
Prabhuji, I was just thinking about the part that you just said about the plow. I never knew why Balaram actually carried the plow. So please let me tell, this is my understanding. So he plows the heart of the devotee from all the anarthas so that Krishna can be established. Is that understanding right, Prabhu? Krishna
only appears in the Dham. So Lord Nityananda and Lord Balaram, he is the Dham. He manifests the Dham. That's what the Sandhini potency is. It's like where we're sitting. He manifests that. It's otam protam. Otam protam cha samstitam, if you know string theory in physics. That talks, everything's held together by a string. At least my life is. And then there's this statement about Balaram. He's otam protam. Otam protam means when you're making a sari or a dhoti on a loom, you got the horizontals already, you have the verticals already, and then they keep throwing little. I know there's a name for it. They keep throwing it through, shunk, 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 and then they pull the thing and it tightens it up. All it is threads, but it's held together. So Balaram is the otam and the protam that's holding everything together. Your question again? I forgot. I get so into the loom.
No, I was just wondering that I never knew Balaram why he carried the plow. You had just mentioned that.
Right. So the plow, just as when Krishna appeared, so people ask, like, okay, the Sadgarbha Asuras, the 6 ill-fated little, actually sages took birth because they were cursed in a previous life to take birth in the womb of Devaki. And they were killed one after another by Kamsa, who was their former grandfather. And so there's a way in which people then say, like, well, how could Krishna appear there in the womb of Devaki? Because, all these impure people, they're asuras. They're called Sadgarbha Asuras. They appeared there first in the womb. Answer is, Balaram appears. Devaki appeared to have a miscarriage in her 7th pregnancy. But actually, Balaram was there, and he's Sankarshana, so he was attracted by Yogamaya. He was pulled from the womb of Devaki to the womb of Rohini, and then everyone said miscarriage was there. But actually, that was Balaram manifesting the Dham after the Sadgarbha Asuras are there, so now Krishna can take his birth in that place. And so that's the business of Balaram. Wherever he goes, he establishes the Dham. And that's the place that Krishna can come and stay. So, like when Prabhupada was traveling, devotees always get his place ready for him. He doesn't just stay anywhere. Like, it has to be clean and sattvic. So Balaram's doing that everywhere so that Krishna can come and land in a transcendental place. And similarly, in our hearts, Balaram, to the instructions of Guru, it takes out with the plow. You plow out, you take out all the weeds. And this is the instruction given in the Gundicha Marjana, cleansing the temple of Gundicha. Mahaprabhu did 3 times, took out all the dirt, and then cleaned outside so it wouldn't come back in. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur comments about how meticulous one has to be to apply the instructions of Guru to overcome the various or the myriad anarthas within the heart. There's a long list of anarthas that spring up in the heart because of long association with three modes of material nature. So Balaram, through the instructions of Guru and by his spiritual strength that he gives to those who are following, he helps us to overcome all those anarthas. And Prabhupada says, once they're all gone, then you can hold a festival and you can invite everybody over and you can install Krishna on the throne of your heart, because it's a clean place by the mercy of Lord Balaram that you can actually worship him in your heart.
Thank you, Prabhu. And
Haribol. Yes, on the board. We'll take these, and Krishna says, those who worship him with exclusive devotion, he preserves what they have and carries what they lack. How can a person who is not completely surrendered to Krishna develop faith in his protection? Just look around. I mean, I can make a admission that is, I didn't plant anything this year. Last year I planted many seeds in the garden. This year, maybe I was too lazy. And besides, Kent kept bringing us vegetables from his beautiful garden. So, do we have no garden? No. It's a miracle garden. All kinds of stuff just grew. There's the tomato. There's squash everywhere. It's like, I didn't lift a finger, actually. They just came up where they were before. And every day when I go back there to put more in the compost pile, I look at that and I say, Krishna's so abundant in his support, even for the ants. I mean, little ants, they work all day long. You got to love them. And they have their whole scheme going on there. They're like, and Krishna's like, okay, you guys are cool. You can have stuff. We'll give you a facility here. Everything, ants being fed, the birds, they're amazing. You just look at the birds and watch them. They're just playing around all day. They eat a few bugs. Where the bugs come from, they're just there. They know how. I saw this little bird in my garden the other day, and he puts his feet on the ground, and then he shuffles. And then when he shuffles, the little bugs come up, and he goes, meep, 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 and he eats them. And he knows exactly what to do. So Krishna's already doing it. It's not that, you have to become a pure devotee, and all of a sudden he carries what you lack and preserve what you have. Get a little handful of seeds, throw them in the... That's why Prabhupada said, try to go to the country once in a while. The artificial life in the city, it's so brutal. People dominating, they put up, barriers to everybody. It's like, you want to own something, kid? You're going to really pay for that. You want an education? You'll be paying the rest of your life. That's like some kind of weird, distorted sense of proprietorship over everybody else. But you go out in the country and just look at the natural world. You throw a couple seeds on the ground, the rain comes, free water. Farmers love it when it rains because you go like, wow, free water. And then it comes down on the ground and then it just sprouts. And it drinks with its feet, it eats dirt, and then big, huge melons come out and fruits, vegetables, and everything like that. Who says Krishna's not carrying what you lack preserves what you have? If he's doing it for the birds who don't care a fig for signing up for classes or for getting insurance or anything like that. They just basically hang out, and Krishna says, yeah, I'll feed you. No problem. I'll feed everybody. He feeds every living entity. Nitya nityanam, chaitanas chaitananam. So now a human comes along and says, what about me? It's like, well, try to, calm down, first of all. Second of all, try to be a little grateful. And try not to live such an artificial lifestyle. Don't do atyahari. Atyahara means, I said atyahari. That's a good name for a person. Atyahari. Atyahara means, it's an Olympic sport. Extreme sports, extreme eating. It means extreme living. Like, I got to live off the charts. So be a simple human and be a happy human. Control your senses, and you'll be you'll be okay. Krishna's going to take care of the squirrels and the ants and you, and don't worry, and chant Hare Krishna. And then if you chant Hare Krishna, you cross over. Bhajantyananya manaso gyatva bhutanamam. The first part of the verse is samaham sarvabhuteshu. I'm equal to everybody. I'm taking care of everybody. Don't worry. And then bhajantyananya. But if you start worshiping me, if you go into bhakti, it's off the charts. The reciprocation from Krishna, you can't even measure it. Krishna is known as vanchatita, which means you can't estimate how much he's going to reciprocate with you for a tiny little bit of bhakti. All you have to do is give a little glance and say, Krishna, I'm in on this. I'm going to follow you. And next thing you know, your whole life is just a flood of Krishna's mercy in every single direction. So that's a true verse. Ananyas chintayantamam yejana parthip. Krishna personally takes care of his devotees in amazing ways. So everyone should surrender to Krishna, I should, starting with me, and become, fully devoted. Does that sound like a good idea? Say yes. Yes. Thank you. Okay, Manjulakanta.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Guru Maharaj, when you say that Krishna is taking care of us and he's doing his share, how do we equate that with the other side, saying if Krishna really cares for us, then why do I have to suffer so much? Is it because my understanding is wrong that I'm suffering?
Yes.
Or there we go.
Yeah, because suffering is purification. It's actually really kind. I saw this little movie clip recently of a judge who gives very interesting sentences, and I read the little blurb that came with it, and it said that his recidivism rate is way lower than everybody else's. Most judges, when they convict criminals, 75% of them, they go to jail. They give them jail time. They go out and they can become even better criminals because they put them in a cell with like a super crook. And it's like, so how do you break in again? It's like, yeah, it's like this. You're doing it all wrong. Let me show you how to really be a crook. Then they come back out, super crook, and then there's the people that he deals with. So this is how this judge does it. So say a person like this one girl had gotten in a cab. This is how old it is. She got in a cab. It's no Uber. She got in a cab and she's gets out and she just takes off running. Doesn't pay the cab driver. Back in the old days, kids, there used to be cabs and you had to pay for them. And so she just get out and she started running, but say she got caught, she got taken to the court. So the judge asked, so how far did the driver take you? He said, 30 miles. He said, okay, you have your choice. You can go to jail for 30 days, or you can go out and walk that same path that you took. You can walk that 30 miles, and then you don't have to do jail time. So she went out, she chose the walk. And, she was not in shape and not used to walking anywhere, I think. And so she took that, and at the end of it, they interviewed her and said, what do you think? She said, yeah, I really learned a lesson. This walking thing was really good for me. And then they interviewed several more people. One of them was somebody who had mistreated a dog and kept it in foul circumstances. So the judge says, you can go to jail for 90 days, or you can go to the county dump and they'll drop you off in the stinkiest part and you have to stay there all day long and help pick up trash. And she said, I'll do that. So he went there, and afterwards, this person who was kind of an animal abuser, she said, God, now I know what it's like. So Krishna has organized the universe in such a way like that you get some choices, and you get these so-called, they're punishments for doing the wrong thing. I broke the law, and now you walk and see how it feels like. What's my karma? I had to walk all that way across the border. Okay, it's teaching you a lesson, something. So it's actually really kind. It's smart. It's not only smart, it's also kind because it imparts a lesson. So you can make a little bumper sticker. Suffering is good. Suffering is kind. It comes from Krishna. But yeah, if we think about it the wrong way, then all the time we're up against like, why should I suffer? But the devotee is just the opposite. Tate nukam pam sumikshamano bunjana evatma pripakam ridvag vapurvir vidadam namaste jivet yo mukti pade sadaya bhak. That is, here she takes it that anything that happens to me is Krishna's mercy. He's trying to teach me a lesson because of what I've done in the past, and therefore it's manifest in this way. So if you take it like that, then Krishna says you're eligible for actually attaining the supreme destination if you take that attitude. So we've heard about Lord Balaram. You have a point? Yes, last one. And then we'll break for Guru Puja.
I was just thinking regarding the japa session points that you were sharing, that every time when we chant, if we don't chant with attention, we don't make it. Because suppose if you're going for a business deal, and if the deal is made in the meeting, then everybody becomes happy. So like that, there is something in chanting, like if we put all our attention, we feel that we did it. Otherwise, it's morose, like, oh, it didn't happen, like that. So I was just thinking like how much importance the attention is.
Yeah, it's a nice analogy, as usual. You come up with great analogies, and it's important to have that every day. Some connection where I made it, I crossed over. That's our strength. That's coming from Lord Balaram. Following the order of the Guru, I'm hearing and chanting, and I'm doing some service, and I feel that breakthrough, that I got the strength from doing it. So now we're going to worship our founder Acharya. So this is a source of strength when we worship the Guru. And we'll take a break for about 3 minutes so everyone can reorganize the room. And then we'll come back in and we'll sing to our heart's content. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, all the devotees on Zoom call ki jai, all the devotees who joined in the studio audience ki jai, Gaur Premanande, Vancha Kalpataruscha, Kripa Sindhave, Vichapatitanam, Pavanibhyo, Vaishnavebhyo, Namo Namaha, Nanta Koti Vaishnavini ki jai.